Hello, 5th grade scholars. Today we'll be learning Grade 5, Module 6, Lesson 7. My name is Mrs. Netler, and I am a District Math Specialist for Elementary. I'm super excited to engage in learning today. Let's go ahead and get started. Our learning goal today is to plot points, use them to draw lines in the plane, and describe patterns within the coordinate pairs. Let's make connections to previous learning you've had in this module already. You have already worked with coordinate pairs, and here is an example of one here. You've also already worked with coordinate planes, and here is an example here. So today, we're going to continue that learning and specifically really look for patterns between the x-coordinate and the y-coordinate. Let's rock. Let's start with problem 1. For the lesson today, you will need your Module 6 Lesson 7 coordinate plane template and a straight edge for connecting the plots with a straight line. Let's begin by looking at the table shown below. I would like you to pause the video and plot those points on the coordinate plane in your template. Do so now. Great job. Let's take a moment to plot these points together. So I'm going to start with point A. Notice that my x-coordinate and my y-coordinate are both 0. So I'm going to find 0 on my coordinate plane and plot that point. And I will label that point as point A. Moving to point B, I notice that my x and y are 1. Remember, when I plot my points, I go across the x-axis first, and I go up the y-axis next. So 1, 1, and I plot, and that is B. I'll do the same for C, and the same for D. I'm going to connect my plots with a straight line. I can now label that line as line AD. I would like you to now look at the relationship between the x-coordinate and the y-coordinate. What pattern do you notice? The pattern that you may see is that the x-coordinate and the y-coordinate are always the same number. So I can say that the relationship between these two coordinates is that x and y are equal. So the rule I can record as x and y are equal. I want you to think about this. Would line AD contain the point coordinate with coordinates of 10, 10, with the x being 10 and the y being 10? I want you to pause the video and think about yes or no and why. When you think about the rule that we just established, that x and y are equal, then we can say yes. Line AD would contain these coordinates because 10 and 10 are equal. Therefore, x and y are equal, confirming our rule. Let's move on. I would now like to challenge you to show me a point on line AD whose coordinates are mixed numbers. So now we're really going to have to tap into Module 4 when we think about our mixed numbers. I would like you to pause your video now and record your point on the template. So you could have come up with a variety of different things. Let's explore a couple of options that we can have on here. So if I think about a mixed number, I know that I need to have a whole number and a fraction. I also notice that my x-axis and my y-axis has a partition spot in between the whole numbers. So if I remember my previous learning, if 1 and 2 is partitioned in half, then that would represent 1 and a half. I can do the same thing up here. So that would be an example of a coordinate pair with mixed numbers. Notice that that coordinate pair is also on line AD. The reason that it's on line AD is because if I record my coordinate pairs, as I did here, notice that the rule still applies. X is equal to Y. Let's keep going. We are now going to move on to new coordinate pairs and discover a new rule and pattern within these coordinates. At this point in time, I would like you to pause the video and plot the points that you see in this table. Then connect them with a line in the order they were plotted. Once you are finished, go ahead and push play to resume. Awesome work! Watch me as I plot these plots to make sure that yours are correct as well. So I'm going to start with point G. My X is 0, my Y is 3. I will label. H, my X is 1/2, and my Y is 3.5. I, my X is 1, and my Y is 4. And lastly, J, my X is 1.5, and my Y is 4.5. Awesome job. Now I'd like you to look at the relationship between the X coordinates and the Y coordinates. What pattern do you notice, and can you identify a rule? Make sure that you include both X and Y in your rule. Once you have your pattern and your rule, go ahead and push play to resume. You guys are absolute rock stars. Great job. So let's talk through the pattern and rule that we found. I'm going to start by looking at point G. My X is 0 and my Y is 3. So looking at that relationship, I know that 3 is 3 more than 0. Let's make sure that this pattern applies to all the other points. So let's look at H. I have 1/2 and 3.5. I can add 3 to 1/2 to get 3.5. So that rule is still good. Let's look at I. I have 1 and 4. I can add 3 to 1 and get 4. The rule applies. And let's look at J. I have 1 and 1/2 and 4.5. I can also add 3 to 1.5 to get 4.5. So I can say that the rule is Y is 3 more than X. Great job. Let's keep going. Now I'm going to challenge you just a little bit more. You now see 4 different lines displayed in these tables. I would like you to take a moment, pause the video, and start exploring the possible patterns that you see between the X coordinates and the Y coordinates in each of these tables. You do not have to establish a rule just yet, but I want you to start exploring those patterns. Once you have finished looking through the tables, press play and resume your learning. All right, here we go. Here's a quick think. Which chart shows the coordinate pair for the rule that Y is always 3? So I want you to look for the chart that shows that Y is always 3. I'm going to give you some think time. Awesome. You may have noticed that in chart A, Y is always 3, which I can show here, right? So that is chart A, or line A, that shows Y is always 3. Now, which chart shows that every Y coordinate is less than every X coordinate? Very good. You notice that it would be chart C. Let's dive a little deeper into chart C. Here we go. I would like you to look at chart C and look at the relationship between the X coordinate and the Y coordinate. Pause the video. At this point in time, I do want you to write a rule for finding points on the line shown in chart C. Once you have found your rule, press play and continue on. Amazing job, scholars. Now let's look at the relationship between these X and Y coordinates to determine what rule we found. I have 1 and 1/2, 2 and 1.5, and 3 and 2.5. Using my knowledge of adding and subtracting fractions, I notice that the common pattern is that y is x minus 1/2. Let's test that theory. 1 minus 1/2 equals 1/2. True? Yes. 2 minus 1/2 equals 1 and 1/2. Also true. And 3 minus 1/2 equals 2 and 1/2. That is correct. So I can display my rule as y is x minus 1/2. Or I can say that y is 1/2 less than x. Both are acceptable answers. Let's keep going. So now we have established rules for both chart A and chart C. I want you to think, which chart shows coordinate pairs on a line that follows the rule y is x times 2? I want you to pause the video, look at both B and D, and figure out which chart follows that rule. Once you have found the chart, go ahead and press play to continue our learning. Great job. I bet you found that chart B was the winner. Looking at the relationship between the x and y coordinates, it follows the rule that y is x times 2. I want you to think about different ways that we can explain that rule. Thinking back to the previous one, I had 2 possible ways of writing that rule. Take a moment, pause the video, and think about different ways that you can record the rule that y is x times 2. Once you're ready, you may press play and continue going. Fantastic work. Here are a couple of examples that students came up with to show the rule that y is x times 2. You could also say that y is double x, meaning if I double x that I get y. I can say that y is twice as much as x. That's a great connection back to Module 1. Or I could say that x is half of y. So notice, guys, that I can change which coordinate goes first depending on the comparison that I'm making. So notice that in the first 3 rules, y was always the first coordinate. And in the last rule, x was the first coordinate. But it still followed the rule. Now I'd like you to take a moment, pause the video, and write down the rule that you find for chart D. Once you've got your rule, go ahead and press play to continue moving forward. Amazing job, rock stars. I noticed that you found the rule that y is 3 times x. I could also say that y is triple x. Same rule, right? So let's check our theory. If I multiply 3 times 1, do I get 3? Yes. What about 2 times 3? Do I get 6? Absolutely. And 3 times 3, is that 9? Great job. All right, scholars. Now I would like you to move to your second coordinate plane on your template. At this point in time, I would like you to pause the video and plot the 3 points from each chart. So A, B, C, and D will all go on the same coordinate plane. And yes, I would like you to draw a line to connect the 3 points. Once you have completed that task, press play and let's keep going. Great job, scholars. Your coordinate plane should look like mine. Notice that some of the points ended up on 2 different lines. For example, point U. It's on line A and line D. Also notice that some of the lines are intersecting. Now that we have explored the patterns and rules for all 4 lines, and we have plotted all of our points, let's move forward with some deeper thinking. Okay, here we go. I have all of the tables here as well as the rules stated underneath each of the tables. I'm going to give you a coordinate pair. I then want you to determine which line the point would fall on. Here we go. Let's start with coordinate pair 5, 10. Take a moment, pause your video, and press play when you're ready to see the answer. Awesome, awesome. You may have noticed that this coordinate pair follows the rule of y is x times 2. Therefore, it fits on line B. Great job. Let's try another one. I would like you to show which chart this coordinate pair fits on. 5 and 4.5. Please pause the video and come back when you've got your answer. Rockstar work. You may have noticed that this pattern follows the rule that y is 1/2 less than x. Therefore, it matches the pattern of line C. Let's do another one. All right, we're going to pick up the complexity just a bit. So I want you to try this one. 1/2 and 1 1/2. Find the rule that these coordinate pairs match. This one was a bit tricky, but I know I didn't fool you awesome scholars. So this rule, or this coordinate pair, matches the rule that y is x times 3. So it matches line D's rule. I can think of it of 3 copies of 1/2, which would give me 3/2 as a fraction greater than 1, and that is equal to 1 1/2 as a mixed number. All right, last one. This one might be a little tricky, but I did give you a hint that some points may actually fall on 2 lines. So I want you to look at this coordinate pair, figure out which rule it applies to. Pause the video, and when you're ready, press play to continue. Okay, so if you establish 2 rules, you get some major bonus points, but the first one, it aligns to the rule that y is x times 2, which is line B. But it can also apply to the rule that y is always 3, which would be line A. Great job, scholars. I want you to think about why this one point would fit on 2 rules. Pause, think about how that could happen, and once you're ready, press play and resume. Great thinking. So this is true because this point would fall on 2 lines, and the same point can be a part of more than 1 line at a time. We talked about that before. Remember I said that point U was on 2 lines. So point U matches the rule of y is x times 3, but if you notice, it also matches the rule that y is always 3. And that was why point U was on 2 different lines. All right, let's keep moving. It's problem set time. Woo woo, it's time to show what you know. So you're going to turn to your grade 5, module 6, lesson 7 problem set. You're going to complete number 2, letters A, B, and C, as well as number 3, letters A and B. Pause the video, give yourself some time to work on that. Once you have finished, go ahead and press play to resume. Congratulations, scholars. You have finished this concept development, you have showed what you know, and you are that much smarter. Super proud of you guys. Now, once you've completed your problem set and submitted it, don't forget to submit it, that's important. Now go to Zern and continue your learning. It was absolutely wonderful learning with you guys today, and I'll see you for the next lesson. Great job.